Hey everyone, I'm Mitch. I have a follow-up video to the bot that I wrote. A lot of people were asking how it's done. A couple of people said it was fake, which is funny. So this is basically two ways to do this. As you know, Amazon has the Echo and Google has their Google Home product. I mean, numerous companies are jumping in on this and getting artificial intelligence speech and using that to respond to various queries. So it's like having someone at your house that'll Google things for you, right? Like, what's the directions to Best Buy, or when does Best Buy open, or where's the nearest pharmacy, you know, things like that. What's the weather like, who's playing football this weekend, etc. So they have an API, obviously, for everyone to write their own products with this. So when you compile this, basically it will upload it to the cloud, and any device or product that you have tied to your Google account or your Amazon account will work with your newly made thing. And then if you like your newly made product, then you can release it on their free store, and then everybody can grab it, you know, for free. So let's talk wargaming. How does this apply to wargaming? Okay. Two things that seem to be important to everybody. One was rules, just like, you know, the Echo Dot telling you where the nearest pharmacy is. It would be handy if that same product could read the rule book to you, but only sections you're curious about, right? So if you're curious about air assaults, I don't remember air assaults. So maybe I can open an Amazon skill, they call it a skill, or maybe I can open Google Home, you know, product, and ask various questions. So let's talk Great War Commander for just a minute. So this DialogFlow bot is for Great War Commander, as you saw in the thing. So basically, I named it Wargame, as you can see. So basically, an intent is something that the artificial intelligence will listen for and then route it to one of these callbacks. So an intent is a callback that will get routed to when a user says something that's similar to it. So let's go to melee, right? So melee. So training phrases are things that the user might say. What happens when you melee? When does melee start? How do I melee? What are the rules for melee? And you can sub in things like air support. What happens when you air support? When does air support start? How do I air support? What are the rules for air support? So you can see that this is super simple. If you're not a programmer, it doesn't matter. You can enter these things, right? You just enter various things. So it's pretty lenient on what people say. So if you say, I want to melee, how does that work? It'll route it here, even though you don't have that statement in here, because the artificial intelligence knows you're kind of going towards melee, and let me shove you into this melee response. Okay, so at the bottom, here is your response. Again, you don't have to be a programmer. You can come in and you can bust out a whole 30-page rule book in probably like 2-3 hours. You just type in, you know, the section. So I'm going to the section on melee. Let me type that in real quick, and then put rule section 016.1 at the conclusion of any order, etc., etc. So let's try that out in real time here. So let's see how this works. We press Google Assistant, and when you click this, it uploads to all your devices. So if I have an iPad with the Google Home on it, it'll upload to the iPad. If I have a Google Home Mini, you know, the little speaker, it'll upload to that. It doesn't matter. So here we go.
Sure, here's the test version of board games. Hello, how can I help you?
How does melee work? How does melee work?
Rules section 016.1. At the conclusion of any order where a hex contains both opponents, melee ensues. Boxed firepower numbers and action bonuses.
So you see, how does melee work doesn't appear here. So what are the rules for melee? How do I melee? I never said, how do I melee? I just said, how does melee work? And it routed me here properly. So that's how basically that whole thing works. And you can have, again, you can like have sudden death. How do you remove suppressed time tracker? Victory points. So there's two types of victory points, right? There's a victory points for a unit, and there's, I want to know how do I win the game. So it'll be two different questions. So here I specify victory points defeating unit, victory points unit, how many victory points for a dead unit, etc. So when I go to the actions, I can ask, how many victory points for killing a unit?
Platoon is 2 victory points, teams and runners are 1, and a leader is 1 plus his command.
So you can see killing a unit doesn't appear anywhere in here, but the artificial intelligence routed it properly to this specific thing, the victory point specific. So let's say winning the game, for example. Okay, here we go. Victory points to win. So the artificial intelligence is going to route it here if I ask about winning and victory points. But if I ask about victory points in a unit or killing something, then it's going to route it to the other one. So let's test that. How many victory points until I win the game?
To win the game, you need enough victory points to pass the surrender marker or to exceed the total victory points on the track.
So that's routed properly. And again, all the heavy lifting is not done by me. So, and then also, again, we're inside of my Board Games app. So I don't have to say, hey, Google, every time. I don't have to say, Alexa, every time I have a question. Once it drops into my app, the regular Alexa goes to the side, and now it just wants to interact with me. So everything that the user said at this point goes into the DialogFlow intents. Now that I've sort of shown you that, and again, you don't have to be a programmer. You can come in here and dump a 30-page rulebook in a couple of hours by just typing, sort of what the AI is going to search for, and then you click, upload to your device, you click, see how it works, and it'll upload to all your devices. And that'll work for, Alexa's same thing. Alexa's build, but same kind of thing. Okay. So that's section 1 of sort of how this whole thing works. So let's go to section 2, which is storing variables and attacking, defending type things as well. So when it comes to storing variables, I'm going to tell you now that Alexa's Lambda stuff is a lot easier. Right here, you have environmental variables, and it'll let you define variables and the key pair values, and it's going to be a lot easier. So if you have a lot of variable type things, for example, let's say we're writing a bot for Mage Knight, right? And we want a helper for Mage Knight, but I want to, sort of store, how many cards have been discarded, or I want to store, or I want to figure out what's the best way to do this or that. Or for example, if you're writing it for War of the Ring, okay? So let's say War of the Ring, you could actually have an interactive bot that when you move a unit, you can say, I moved the fellowship 1 space, okay? And that'll be stored in an environmental variable. And now the AI, or now your program knows, okay, the track has been moved up 1. And War of the Ring, I think, would be an ultimate project for this, because War of the Ring right now, the Java client that it has, it asks you like 50 questions, right? But what you could do is every time you do something, you could tell Google or Alexa, you could tell it what you're doing, and it would store it. And now my program knows, all right, the fellowship track is moved by 2. Maybe I should put an extra hunt dice in there, to sort of get a handle on that, because I don't know where he is. As well as in War of the Ring, you could also say, hey, I'm moving 4 troops into Rivendell or whatever, right? And now my application can memorize, okay, there's 7 troops in Rivendell because he moved 3 there before, and now he moved 4 more. So do you see what I'm saying? So you could make the ultimate War of the Ring bot. Any game you want. You could literally sort of, in the programming language, you could see where everything is, and then you could make decisions on an AI and say, hey, that's a lot of people in Rivendell. There's an attack about to come in my fort next door. Let me get, a couple ring wraiths or whatever in there and have a little more leadership rerolls, right? So it's the ultimate. I think this platform, especially Amazon, would be the ultimate bot making software for this type of things. Anyway, let's go back to environmental variables. So we have DialogFlow. So there's 2 parts to this. One is in Great War Commander, when you have your attack, what you're going to do is you're going to declare an attack between this much firepower and this much morale, right? And then you're going to roll 2 dice or pick up 2 cards, and they'll have dice on them. So you have to break it down into 2 pieces. And here is the dice, attack and defender rolls. And here is the start. So let's go into the start and look at how this works. First thing is session varies. And again, you remember I said you need a place to store all of your stuff so that the next request that comes in, I know what was said in the previous request. Does that make sense? So if I'm attacking with 9 firepower against 8 morale, and I say, what dice did you roll? That's a separate request. And so the numbers that I've memorized here, I won't remember later. So I need to put them in some place that's common between this request, the next request, the next request, etc. And that's what session varies is. And that 50 means the lifespan, how many requests I'm going to keep it for. And I want to keep it for 50. It's a bit overkill, but whatever. So now here comes the hard part, is trying to figure out what the user is going to say. So I'm sort of guessing here. I'm going to say attacking with 2 strength versus 8 defense. Or maybe they say attacker has 2 firepower, defender has 2 morale, or 8 morale, or whatever. The numbers don't matter. What matters is the parameters. So you'll notice the numbers are highlighted, meaning listen for a number in that location and then jam it into a variable. And the variable is what we're going to store and process in the back end, right? So you'll see down here the variables have firepower and morale. So you also see that they're mandatory, required, and prompts. So what if they leave it out? Attacker has 9 firepower, and then they stop, right? How many morale do we have? So since I didn't hear a morale, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them, and it's going to say, and right here, it's going to say, what's the defender's morale or defense value, including hex, cover, and modifiers, all right? So if they leave it out, then I'm going to force them to tell me, basically. I'm going to have a follow-up question kind of thing. So now I have, you see the variables, firepower and morale. Okay, so every intent that you have, all of these intents go to one common function, and that is in fulfillment. So if I click fulfillment, for example, here's where you sort of need to be a programmer, right? If you're just going to make a rules engine, you don't have to be a programmer. You just type. If you can type words, you're good. But if you want to do variable tracking, variable processing, and response to particular numbers, then yeah, you got to code, man. So here's a standard. What I'm doing here is I have 2 hooks. I have attack, respond, and a roles respond. So the first time you say I want to attack, it goes to the attack respond function. And then when you do your roles, it goes to the roll respond. So let's look at attack respond. So what I'm doing is I'm doing 2 constants, and I'm parsing integers of the parameters that you passed. So if you said firepower, when it parsed firepower, when the artificial intelligence got the firepower, it's here. And the parameter of morale, that's going to be here. Okay? And now I'm setting the session variables. These are going to be the variables that are going to be global. Okay? So I'm going to do a set context. Again, it's called session varies. You can name it anything. You can name it my favorite doggy. I mean, it doesn't matter. Lifespan of 50, way too much. Parameters of attack total. That's my running attack total. And here's my running defense total. Okay? All right. So here's where I'm going to say, some feedback. Some nice feedback, like you're talking to somebody. This looks promising. What cards did you pull? Or defending this is going to be tough. Or equal odds, that's going to be a close match. This is exciting. So let's see what that looks like.
Sure, here's the test version of board games.
Welcome to Great War Commander.
Attacking with 5 strength versus 5 defense.
Equal odds, this will be a close match. Please pull the cards and tell me what you drew.
Attacker rolled a 7. Defender rolled a 3.
Attacker defeated the defender 12 versus 8.
Yeah, that's good. All right, so that's that's how this works. So you're storing something, and then later you're adding to it, and then you come up with a total. So let's change up the wording a bit and find out how this works.
Okay, let's get the test version of board games.
Welcome to Great War Commander.
Attacking with 5 firepower versus 5 morale.
Equal odds, this will be a close match. Please pull the cards and tell me what you drew.
Attacker rolled a 9. Defender rolled a 7.
Attacker defeated the defender 14 versus 12.
And there you go. That's basically it. There's not much to it. Again, you're going to have to code if you're going to do a bunch of stuff. So, I mean, you saw that coming. Come on. We have different responses based upon the attack value. Attacker defeated the offender. Blah versus blah. Defender is unharmed. Attacker and defender are tied. Place a suppressed marker and things like that. So, I mean, it's not a ton of code, but you're going to have to write some code if you want to do variable handling. This is just a great platform. You can parse input from people. You can read the rulebook to them if they have questions on a particular rule. And best of all, if you're just going to do rulebook manipulation, you really don't need to code. And since somebody will want to see this live, here we go on my Grand Tactical series, the best series ever book. Okay. Hey Google, what time is it?
The time is 11:29.
Well, thank you. Hey Google, talk to board games.
Okay, let's get the test version of board games.
Welcome to Great War Commander.
How does Melee work?
Rules Section 016.1. At the conclusion of any order where a hex contains both opponents, melee ensues. Boxed firepower numbers and action bonuses help.
How many victory points do I need to win the game?
To win the game, you need enough victory points to pass the surrender marker or to exceed the total victory points on the track.
How many victory points do I get for killing a unit?
Platoon is 2 victory points, teams and runners are 1, and a leader is 1 plus his command.
Attacker has 9 firepower. Defender has 3 morale.
This looks promising for the attacker. What cards did you pull?
The attacker rolled a 4. Defender rolled a 3.
What dice value was on the card for defender?
3.
Attacker defeated the defender 13 versus 6.
Cancel. So cancel takes it completely out of the loop. So you can see there it didn't pick up the defender value, so it wanted to ask me. So that's my Texas accent most likely. So if you pronounce it correctly, then you won't have a problem. It picks up numbers pretty nice. And if it doesn't pick up the number, it'll specifically ask you for the number and etc. So that's a live... Hey, Google, when do the Dallas Cowboys play next?
The Cowboys will play the Saints on Thursday at 7:20 p.m.
Thursday night football, guys. Got to catch it. They're a 6-5 record right now, I think. So maybe I won't. So anybody can just come in here and publish this. And again, when you press, see how it works in Google Assistant, it will go to all your devices. And then once you get it to a point where you like it, then you can publish it on Google and everybody can have it for free. So this is the Google explanation for this particular type of bot. If you have any questions whatsoever, please let me know and I'll be happy to help. Again, I'm Mitch, otherwise known as Soundboard, and this is my explanation on how to build a board game / war game bot.